You've been speaking English for years. But sometimes people still say, "Sorry, what did you say?" And that moment, it stays with you. Not because you don't know English, but because your pronunciation doesn't match your thoughts. Today, we're not just fixing sounds. We're rebuilding your confidence, your voice, and the way the world hears you. This is not just a lesson. This is your transformation. Lesson 1. You wake up early, maybe in a small town, maybe in a busy city. You've learned English from books, from teachers, from videos. You understand almost everything. You read well. You write well. But when you speak, something feels off. People pause. They lean in. Sometimes they misunderstand simple words. You start thinking, maybe my English is not good. But here's the truth. Your English is good. Your pronunciation just needs alignment. Pronunciation is not about intelligence. It's about habit. The way you learned sounds, the way your native language shaped your mouth, the rhythm you naturally follow. All of that created your current voice. And today, we begin reshaping it. Not by force, but by awareness. Lesson 2. Let's talk about one of the most common mistakes. The sound of W and V. You say wine, but people hear vine. You say very, but it sounds like wary. And suddenly, a small sound creates a big confusion. Here's what's really happening. Your lips and teeth are not cooperating correctly. For V, your top teeth gently touch your lower lip. For W, your lips round forward like you're about to blow air. It's not difficult, but it feels unnatural at first. That's the challenge. Your brain knows the word, but your muscles don't know the movement. So today, you don't just repeat words. You train your mouth. You slow down. You feel the sound. Because pronunciation is physical, and transformation begins with awareness. Lesson 3. Now imagine this. You're speaking in a group. You say a sentence perfectly in your mind. But when it comes out, the stress is wrong. English is not just words. It's music. Every sentence has a rhythm. Some words are strong, some are soft. If you say every word with equal force, your speech becomes flat. And flat speech is hard to understand. For example, when you say, "I want to go to the store," instead of, "I want to go to the store," you create tension where there should be flow. Native speakers don't stress every word. They glide, they connect, they reduce. So your next step is not just speaking. It's listening deeply. Listening like a musician. Because fluency is not speed. It's rhythm. Lesson 4. Let's talk about a silent enemy. Letters that exist, but are never spoken. You read knife, but you say K-knife. You see hour, but you say hig hour. And without realizing it, you reveal your learning pattern. English is full of silent letters, and these silent letters confuse learners across the world. But here's the shift. Stop trusting spelling. Start trusting sound. English is not a phonetic language. What you see is not always what you say. So instead of memorizing words visually, you start memorizing them through sound patterns. You hear them. You repeat them. You live them. Because your ears must guide your tongue. Lesson 5. Now we face something deeper. Fear. You know the correct pronunciation. You've practiced it. But when you speak in real life, you go back to old habits. Why? Because pressure changes behavior. When you're nervous, your brain chooses comfort over accuracy. And your comfort is your old pronunciation. So the real challenge is not learning sounds. It's using them under pressure. And that requires something powerful. Confidence built through repetition. You don't practice until you get it right. You practice until you cannot get it wrong. So you repeat. Not 10 times, not 20 times, but until your new voice feels natural. Because confidence is not given. It is built. Inspiring closing, part 1. Right now, your voice is changing. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. Every sound you correct, every word you reshape, every sentence you slow down, you are becoming someone new, someone clearer, someone stronger, someone heard. This journey is not about perfect English. It's about powerful communication, and you've already taken the first step. So keep going, because your voice deserves to be understood. Lesson 6. There is a moment when you realize English is not spoken word by word. It is spoken as a connected stream. You learn to say, I am going to eat. But native speakers say, I'm gonna eat. The words are not missing. They are simply blending. This is called linking. And without it, your speech sounds robotic, even if your grammar is perfect. When one word ends with a consonant and the next begins with a vowel, they connect. Take it becomes take it. Want to becomes wanna. This is not lazy English. This is natural English. So your next step is not to speak clearly word by word. It is to flow, to connect, to sound human. Lesson 7. Now let's slow everything down, because speed is not your goal. Clarity is. Many learners believe that speaking fast means speaking fluently. But fast speech with wrong pronunciation creates confusion, and confusion breaks communication. Native speakers don't speak fast all the time. They adjust. They slow down when needed. They emphasize important words. So instead of trying to impress, focus on being understood. Say fewer words, but say them clearly, because real fluency is not about speed, it's about control. Lesson 8. There is a small sound that changes everything. The TH sound. You've seen it in words like think, this, and that. But many learners replace it with T, D, or S. Think becomes tink. This becomes dis. And again, meaning starts to shift. The TH sound requires something uncomfortable. Your tongue must come slightly between your teeth. Not too much. Just enough to let the air pass. At first, it feels strange, maybe even embarrassing. But this is where growth begins. Every new sound will feel unnatural, until it becomes part of you. Lesson 9. Now we enter the world of stress inside words. Take the word record. If you say record, it's a noun. If you say record, it's a verb. Same spelling, different meaning. And the only difference is stress. This is where many learners struggle, because they focus on letters, not sound patterns. English words have a heartbeat, a strong syllable, and if you miss that beat, the word loses its identity. So instead of reading words silently, start listening to how they are spoken. Feel where the energy rises, because pronunciation is not just sound, it is emphasis. Lesson 10. You've come this far. Now let's talk about something subtle, but powerful. The sound of R. In American English, the R is strong. It is not soft. It is not rolled. It is clear and controlled. In words like car, hard, work, the R shapes the sound. But many learners either drop it or overpronounce it, and that creates confusion. The key is balance. Your tongue moves slightly back, your lips relax, and the sound flows naturally. You don't force it, you guide it, because every sound in English has a position, and when your mouth finds that position, your voice becomes accurate. Lesson 11. Let's talk about endings. Small sounds at the end of words. Sounds like -ed, -s, -t. Many learners drop them. They say walk instead of walked. They say book instead of books. And these small mistakes change time, meaning, and clarity. Endings are not optional. They are essential. But here's the challenge. In fast speech, endings are soft, not loud, not exaggerated, just present. So your goal is not to shout the ending, but to include it, to complete the word, because incomplete words create incomplete understanding. Lesson 12. Now imagine this. You're listening to a native speaker. You know every word they're saying, but you still don't understand. Why? Because of reductions. Words like to, for, of, and. They often become weak sounds. To becomes tu, for becomes fur, and becomes an. So I want to go becomes I want to go. If you only learned full forms, you'll miss real speech. So now, your listening must evolve. You stop expecting perfect pronunciation and start recognizing natural patterns. Because English in real life is different from English in books. Lesson 13. This lesson is about patience. Because change does not happen overnight. You may practice today and still make mistakes tomorrow. That is normal. Your brain is building new pathways. Your muscles are learning new movements. And that takes time. So don't judge yourself too quickly. Don't say, I'm not improving, because you are. Every time you notice a mistake, you are closer to fixing it. Awareness is progress, even before perfection arrives. Lesson 14, let's bring emotion into your voice. Because pronunciation is not just technical, it is expressive. When you say, I'm really happy, do you sound happy? Or do you sound neutral? Native speakers change tone, pitch, and rhythm based on feeling. Their voice rises. It falls. It stretches certain words. This is called intonation. And without it, your speech sounds flat, even if your words are correct. So now, you don't just practice sounds. You practice feeling. Because language is not just information. It is connection. Lesson 15. You've reached a turning point. Now you understand something deeper. Pronunciation is not about copying someone else. It's about becoming clear in your own voice. You don't need to sound exactly like an American speaker. You don't need to lose your identity. But you do need to be understood. That is your goal. Clear, confident, natural. And now, you are no longer guessing. You are training. You are listening differently. You are speaking with intention. And that changes everything. Right now, something powerful is happening. You are no longer just learning English. You are mastering how to express yourself. Every corrected sound, every connected word, every moment of awareness. You are building a voice that people will understand and remember. So don't stop here, because your next level is already waiting for you, and your voice is getting stronger with every step. We continue, and now something shifts. You are no longer just correcting sounds. You are stepping into control. Lesson 16. Think about the last time you spoke English in a real conversation. Not practice, not repetition. A real moment. Maybe you hesitated. Maybe you rushed. Maybe your pronunciation changed without you noticing. This is where real growth happens. Because controlled practice is one world, and real communication is another. In real conversations, your brain is busy thinking about meaning, not sound. So your old habits return. This is why many learners feel confident alone, but unsure with others. The solution is not more theory. It is simulation. You begin practicing like it's real. You speak out loud. You respond to imaginary situations. You create pressure before real pressure arrives, because confidence is built in preparation. Lesson 17. Now let's uncover a hidden pattern. Function words versus content words. Content words carry meaning. Nouns, verbs, adjectives. Words like go, house, important. Function words connect meaning. Words like to, a, the, of. Here's the secret. Content words are strong. Function words are weak. If you stress everything equally, your speech becomes heavy. But when you reduce function words, your speech becomes natural. I want to go to the store becomes I want to go to the store. Notice the difference. The meaning becomes clearer, not weaker. Because English is not about saying more. It's about saying what matters. With energy. Lesson 18. There's a sound learners often ignore, but native speakers depend on it. The schwa sound. It is the most common sound in English, and it is never stressed. It sounds like a soft In words like about, problem, support, you don't say every vowel clearly. You relax them, you reduce them, and that creates rhythm. Without the schwa, your English sounds too sharp, too deliberate, too unnatural. So now, your goal is not to pronounce every letter perfectly. It is to relax into the sound. Because natural speech is efficient, not perfect. Lesson 19. Let's talk about listening again. But this time, deeper. You don't listen just to understand meaning anymore. You listen to how things are said. Where does the speaker pause? Which words are stretched? Where does the voice rise and fall? This is advanced listening, and it transforms your pronunciation faster than speaking alone, because your brain starts to absorb patterns automatically. You don't force it, you expose yourself to it, again and again, until your voice begins to mirror what you hear. Lesson 20. Now we address something many learners avoid. Recording your own voice. It feels uncomfortable, sometimes even embarrassing. Because when you hear yourself, you notice everything. The mistakes, the hesitation, the unnatural rhythm. But this is your most powerful tool. Because what you hear, you can fix. So you record, you listen, you compare. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Because your voice is not your enemy, it is your instrument. And now, you are learning how to tune it. Lesson 21. Imagine speaking English without translating in your mind. No delay, no hesitation, just direct expression. This is where pronunciation becomes natural. Because translation slows you down. It breaks your rhythm. It interrupts your sound patterns. So now, you begin thinking in English. Simple thoughts. Short sentences. I need water. I will go later. And gradually, your brain adjusts. Your speech becomes faster. Not forced, but fluid. Because language is not meant to be translated. It is meant to be lived. Lesson 22. Let's explore contrast. Because sometimes, the smallest differences matter the most. Ship and sheep. Bit and beat. Full and fool. These pairs confuse many learners because the vowel sounds are close but not identical. And if you mix them, you change meaning completely. So now, your focus sharpens. You don't just hear words, you hear differences. Tiny shifts in sound. Because precision creates clarity, and clarity builds confidence. Lesson 23. Now we step into pacing, the space between words. Silence. Yes. Silence is part of pronunciation. If you speak without pause, your listener gets lost. If you pause too much, your message breaks. So you learn balance. Short pauses after ideas. Slight breaks before important words. This gives your listener time to process, and it gives you time to control your speech. Because great speakers don't just use sound, they use silence. Lesson 24. There is something powerful about repetition, but not all repetition is equal. Mindless repetition creates boredom. Focused repetition creates mastery. So when you practice, you don't just repeat words, you repeat with attention. You notice your lips, your tongue, your breath. You adjust, again and again, until the correct sound becomes automatic. Because practice is not about time, it is about awareness. Lesson 25. You've reached another level. Now you understand that pronunciation is not one skill. It is many skills combined. Sound, stress, rhythm, intonation, connection, and most importantly, consistency. You don't improve by practicing once. You improve by showing up daily, even for a few minutes. Because small, consistent effort creates lasting change. And now, your voice is no longer uncertain. It is evolving, becoming clearer, stronger, more natural. Pause for a moment. Think about where you started and where you are now. You notice sounds you never noticed before. You hear mistakes, and you understand them. You speak with more awareness. That is growth, real growth. And it's only the beginning, because your voice is not fixed. It is flexible, it is trainable, it is powerful. So keep going, because one day soon, you won't think about pronunciation anymore. You'll just speak, and people will understand you clearly, confidently, completely. We continue. And now, your voice begins to carry something new. Not just clarity, but presence. Lesson 26. There's a moment in every learner's journey when pronunciation stops being a struggle and starts becoming a choice. Before you were guessing. Now you are deciding. You choose to slow down. You choose to stress the right word. You choose to connect sounds. This shift is powerful because control creates confidence, and confidence changes how people listen to you. When you speak with intention, people don't just hear your words, they feel your certainty. Lesson 27. Now imagine you're in a fast conversation. Two people speaking quickly, words blending, sounds disappearing. At first, it feels impossible to follow. But here's the truth. Native speakers are not speaking clearly word by word. They are compressing language. Did you eat yet? Becomes jeet yet. Wanna go? Becomes wanna go. This is not incorrect English. This is real English. So instead of resisting fast speech, you learn to decode it. You train your ears to catch patterns, because once you recognize them, fast speech becomes understandable. Lesson 28. Let's talk about energy. Not physical energy, but vocal energy. Some learners speak too softly, others speak too forcefully. But effective pronunciation lives in balance. Your voice should be relaxed, but supported, clear, but not tense. When you speak, your breath carries your sound. If your breath is weak, your pronunciation weakens. So now, you pay attention to breathing. You don't rush your sentences. You let your voice flow naturally. Because strong pronunciation is not forced. It is supported. Lesson 29. Now we enter something subtle. Word endings in connected speech. When words connect, endings can change slightly. Next day becomes next day. Good boy becomes gub boy. This is called assimilation. Sounds influence each other. They adjust, they blend, and this makes speech smoother. If you pronounce every sound separately, your speech sounds mechanical. But when sounds adapt to each other, your speech becomes fluid. Lesson 30. Let's revisit confidence, but from a deeper place. Confidence is not about never making mistakes. It's about continuing, even when you do. You will mispronounce words sometimes. Everyone does, even native speakers. But what matters is your response. Do you stop, or do you continue? Because communication is not perfection. It is connection, and connection happens when you keep going. Lesson 31. Now imagine telling a story in English. Not just speaking, but expressing. You describe a moment. You build emotion. You guide your listener. This is where pronunciation meets storytelling. Your voice changes with the story. You slow down for important parts. You raise your tone for excitement. You soften your voice for emotion. And suddenly, your English becomes alive. Lesson 32. Let's sharpen your awareness again. This time, with minimal pairs and real sentences. I live on a ship. I live on a sheep. The difference is small, but the meaning changes completely. So now, you don't just practice words. You practice them in sentences. Because real communication happens in context, and context strengthens your control. Lesson 33. There's a rhythm in American English, a pattern of strong and weak beats. It's almost like music, da 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 da. I want to go to the store. If you match this rhythm, your speech sounds natural. If you ignore it, your speech feels unnatural. So now, you don't just speak. You perform. You follow the beat. Because English is not flat. It moves. Lesson 34. Now we face something real. Frustration. There will be days when you feel stuck, when progress feels slow, when mistakes repeat. This is normal. Because learning pronunciation is physical. And physical change takes time. So in those moments, you don't quit. You adjust. You simplify. You return to basics. Because progress is not always visible, but it is always happening if you continue. Lesson 35. You've come far, further than you realize. Now, your voice carries awareness. You notice stress. You hear rhythm. You feel connection. And most importantly, you trust the process. You are no longer trying to sound perfect. You are working to sound clear, natural, confident, and that shift changes everything. Right now, your voice is evolving, not just in sound, but in strength. You are speaking with more intention, more clarity, more presence, and the world will respond to that. Because when your voice becomes clear, your message becomes powerful. So keep moving forward. Because every lesson, every practice, every moment of awareness is building a voice that cannot be ignored. We continue. And now, something becomes undeniable. You are no longer learning how to pronounce English. You are becoming someone who owns their voice in English. Lesson 36. There is a quiet shift happening inside you. Before, you were reacting to language. Now, you are anticipating it. You hear a sentence, and you already know where the stress will fall. You listen to a word, and you recognize its rhythm before repeating it. This is no longer basic learning. This is instinct forming. And instinct is what separates effort from ease. Because when pronunciation becomes instinctive, you stop thinking, and you start flowing. Lesson 37. Now imagine speaking in a situation that matters. A job interview, a classroom, a conversation with someone you respect. In these moments, pressure rises, and pressure reveals your habits. If your pronunciation is not stable, it breaks under stress. But if you've practiced deeply, it holds. So now, your training becomes stronger. You don't just practice casually. You practice with intention, with focus, with repetition under imagined pressure. Because the goal is not just improvement. The goal is reliability. Lesson 38. Let's explore natural hesitation. Even native speakers pause. They say things like, let me think. But here's the difference. Their pauses feel natural, not forced, not panicking. So instead of fearing pauses, you learn to use them. A short pause gives you time to think, to breathe, to prepare your next sentence. And when used correctly, it makes your speech feel more human. Lesson 39. Now we return to listening. But at an even deeper level, you start noticing accents. Different regions, different styles. American English is not one single sound. It has variations. But clarity remains consistent. So instead of copying one person exactly, you absorb patterns from many voices. And slowly, you build your own version of clear English. Not fake, not forced, but natural to you. Lesson 40. There's something powerful about slowing down at the right moment. When you say something important, you give it space. You don't rush it. You allow each word to land. This is how speakers create impact. Not by speaking more, but by speaking with control. So now, you learn when to slow down, when to emphasize, when to let your words breathe. Because great pronunciation is not constant speed. It is controlled variation. Lesson 41. Let's talk about self-correction. In the past, when you made a mistake, you might have ignored it or felt embarrassed. But now, you notice it and you adjust. Sometimes immediately, sometimes after the sentence. This is a powerful skill because it means you are aware in real time, and real-time awareness leads to real-time improvement. Lesson 42. Now imagine teaching someone else, explaining a sound, demonstrating a word, helping them correct a mistake. When you teach, you understand more deeply because you must explain clearly. So even if you're still learning, you begin sharing with a friend, with a classmate, even with yourself, because teaching reinforces mastery. Lesson 43. There's a moment when your confidence becomes visible, not just to you, but to others. People stop asking you to repeat. They respond faster. They understand you the first time, and you feel it. That shift, that recognition. This is the result of everything you've built, not overnight, but through consistent effort. Lesson 44. Now we refine. Small adjustments, tiny corrections, subtle improvements. At this level, big mistakes are rare, but small details still matter. The softness of a vowel, the length of a sound, the placement of stress. These details create polish, and polish creates professionalism. Lesson 45. You've reached a level many learners never reach, not because it's impossible, but because they stopped too early. But you didn't stop. You continued. You practiced. You stayed aware. And now, your pronunciation is not just correct. It is reliable, consistent, natural, and strong. Take a moment. Breathe. And recognize what you've done. You started with uncertainty, with hesitation, with doubt. And now, you speak with clarity, with rhythm, with control. Your voice carries meaning. Your words carry confidence. And your presence carries impact. But this is not the end, because your voice will continue to grow, continue to adapt, continue to strengthen. So keep speaking, keep listening, keep evolving, because the world is listening now, and you are ready to be heard. We continue. And now, you reach the final stretch, not the end of learning, but the beginning of mastery. Lesson 46. There is a moment when everything feels natural. You're speaking, and suddenly, You're not thinking about pronunciation anymore. Your words flow, your sounds connect, your rhythm feels right. And you pause for a second and realize, this is different. This is the result of everything you've practiced. All the awareness, all the repetition, all the small corrections. They've come together. Not perfectly, but powerfully. And this is what real progress feels like. Lesson 47. Now imagine speaking to someone new, a stranger, someone who has never heard you before, and they understand you immediately. No confusion, no repetition, just clear communication. This moment is quiet, but meaningful, because this is what you were working toward. Not perfection, but understanding. And now, you've reached it. Lesson 48. Let's reflect on your journey. You started with sounds, simple corrections, small awareness. Then you moved to stress, to rhythm, to connect, to emotion. Each layer built on the last. Each lesson shaped your voice. And now your English is no longer mechanical. It is expressive. It is alive. Lesson 49. Now you step into ownership. This is your voice. Not borrowed, not copied, but built. Through effort, through patience, through persistence. You don't need to sound like anyone else. You sound like you, clear, confident, and understood. And that is enough. Lesson 50. This is where everything comes together. You speak, and your pronunciation supports your meaning. You listen, and you understand naturally. You think, and your thoughts come out smoothly. There is no struggle, only flow. And this is not the end of your journey. It is the foundation of everything that comes next. Because language is a lifelong skill. And now, you've built it correctly. Lesson 51. Now your focus shifts. From learning to live. You use English in real conversations, real situations, real emotions. And every time you speak, you reinforce what you've built. Because mastery is not maintained by thinking. It is maintained by using. So you speak often, you engage, you express. Lesson 52. There will still be moments of challenge. New words, new situations, unexpected conversations. But now, you are ready. Because you don't fear mistakes anymore. You adapt, you adjust, you continue. And that makes all the difference. Lesson 53. Now you become an example. Someone else listens to you and feels inspired. They see your clarity, they hear your confidence, and they think, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And in that moment, your journey becomes someone else's beginning. Lesson 54. You've built more than pronunciation. You've built discipline, patience, awareness, confidence. These skills go beyond language. They shape how you learn anything, how you grow, how you face challenges. And that is the real transformation. Lesson 55. This is your final lesson in this journey, but not your final step, because your voice will keep evolving, keep improving, keep adapting. And every time you speak, you carry everything you've learned, not as rules, but as an instinct, as a habit, as identity. Close your eyes for a moment. Remember the version of you who hesitated, who doubted their pronunciation, who felt unsure speaking out loud. Now open your eyes. That version of you is gone. In its place is someone stronger, someone clearer, someone ready. Your voice is no longer something you hide. It is something you use to express, to connect, to grow. And from this moment forward, you don't wait to speak perfect English. You speak, you communicate, you live the language. Because your voice matters, your words matter. And now, the world can finally hear you. If this journey spoke to you, don't stop here. Speak today. Practice today. Share your voice today. because the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And your next level, I'm already waiting.